welcome into my kitchen again. We are cooking with herbs today. As you can see, all these fresh herbs. I'm going to be talking about the medicinal properties of herbs and why they're so important to bring into your everyday, whether they're fresh or even whether they're dried. So I get a lot of questions from people, is fresh better than dried or dried better than fresh, vice versa? Really at the end of the day, they are both extremely medicinal. Herbs in general are medicinal. They are plant medicine because they are so concentrated. Their flavor really indicates that to us. They're so concentrated in flavor and aroma compared to maybe other vegetables and fruits and things like that that grow. They're more mild. Herbs are really intense, especially these culinary herbs, which is why we love cooking with them. They're so fragrant. And then there's also medicinal herbs, which I have a whole shelf of over here, which are just, they might not taste as good, right? We might not cook with them, but they're very medicinal and healing as well. So anyway, getting back to, is fresh better than dried? Fresh is always gonna be more potent, right? So right now I have like this basil. I smell it. I'm like not even crushing it or anything. I'm just smelling the leaves. I can smell that fresh pungency of the basil. Here's some parsley, and sorry, that's cilantro. This is parsley. So they're gonna be full of hydration, right? They have a higher water content, obviously, because they're not dried. It's also what we're smelling is their essential oils. So they're gonna be really high. Fresh herbs are always gonna be highest in their water content, the hydration, the essential oils, and more of the, especially the water soluble vitamins and things like that are really gonna hold true in the freshest form. But that doesn't mean that dried is bad. Dried is very good as well. And we always wanna be going for high quality herbs that are not irradiated, I don't know how to pronounce that word, but basically what it means is that if you buy a generic brand of herbs, they tend to have a red lid. That brand, and a lot of the bigger ones like that as well, they will irradiate their herbs, which means they'll grow them. They're usually grown with a lot of pesticides and things like that in the first place, and then they'll spray this chemical on them so that the herbs and leaves drop off, so they don't have to waste their time picking it. So it'll drop to the ground, and it's an easier way for them to pick them. And they don't have to indicate that on the label at all, which is great. So instead, I like to personally avoid a lot of those bigger brands and go to these smaller ones that are trying to keep it organic. This one does a good job, but then there's also the Frontier Co-op, which is really fantastic. I think this might be the same brand, just different, I guess, more recent labels. The labeling now kind of looks like this. So these literally will tell you all of that. They will also, that they don't do that. They also say non-GMO and organic. So really good thing to turn over your spice cabinet, especially right now if you haven't touched it in a while. That really is showing too, especially if herbs are ground. They are going to oxidize quicker and spoil quicker, and they're going to lose their healing potency. So if you've had herbs for, in your cabinet for over a year that are ground, they're pretty dead. So it's a good time to change it out. If the herbs are whole, so these are fennel seeds, they can last for years because they've just been dried and they're in their whole form. So these can sit on the shelf for a long time. Something that's ground up is gonna lose its potency. So if you don't go through it enough, then it's kind of a little bit too old. But I wanna go through some basic blends that you can put together so that you can use right now I know everyone's kind of holed up in their house and might not have access to getting a bunch of these fresh versions, right? If you don't have them in your garden, or the grocery stores are pretty bare right now. So the pantry and your spice cabinet is a great place to go when you're looking to healing with food, and boosting that, that healing potency is going to dried herbs. So what I just wanted to explain to you guys is a couple herb blends that you can make almost any type of traditional dish out of. So to start, I'm also adding in a couple of the fresher ones like garlic and ginger. to add in here, but if you were to make like a marinara sauce, right, and you just have a can of tomatoes and you're like, oh, we're all out of marinara sauce, like I just wanted to make pasta tonight. Well, if you have some garlic on hand, you take garlic and then you take some, you could put thyme and where is it? Oregano, right? Definitely the oregano. That's gonna give it that tomatoey, even like what we know is like the pizza kind of taste to it, right? So we have garlic, thyme, oregano. You could do some red pepper flakes and tomato sauce. And then there you go, you cook it together and that's your own marinara at home. If you wanted to go for more of like an Indian flair, you wanted to make like a curry or a lentil dal with some lentils. Basically, it's really simple. You just saute a bunch of veggies together with the addition of these spices. So you would do mustard seeds. If you have those on hand, you may have bought them for like one recipe years ago and never used them. A lot of Indian food throws mustard seeds in there. So you can start with that. You can put in, you'll definitely want to put in cumin, so that's a good base. Turmeric, right? You can do fennel seeds, that's found in Indian food very often. And even something like cardamom, right? So those are all great, and that can help make a curry. It's technically not a curry because I'm not putting curry leaves in there. That's what makes a curry, but it'll taste like it. You'll know what that tastes like. So that's how you would make an Indian style. And you would always, you would start off with garlic and ginger as your base, and then add in those things, the turmeric, the cumin, maybe the mustard seeds, anything else that you have on hand, and layer that in. So that's how you would make an Indian dish. And then to make an Asian style dish, you would use, again, garlic, ginger. A lot of these things repeat themselves. If you have any jalapenos or anything that's spicy on hand, you could just do red pepper flakes. Usually Asian dishes start out with these two things and something spicy. You can leave out the spice too if you'd like. So you can throw those together, and then really with that, actually I don't see any other herbs we would use with the Asian dish, but you would then do soy sauce and toasted sesame oil. So these are all things that you have on hand, which means you can always be making something new and exciting, and you can just throw it together. So that is that. And then again, like I was saying with these fresh herbs, the benefit is that we're getting a really big bang for our buck in terms of the medicinal properties, just because we're getting those essential oils and all of that, which sometimes are lost in the dried. But I digress. So today what we are making is we are going to make a chimichurri with the parsley and the cilantro that I have on hand. So I'm going to tell you the healing properties of these foods. So parsley is one of the best herbs for the kidneys. Now, a lot of us might go to the doctor and our doctor would say, oh, your kidneys are just fine. But the kidney element is really important in Chinese medicine. It's where your life force energy lives. Your Jing is what it's called and referred to. And you'll also know that we have adrenal glands that sit right on top of the kidneys. And those adrenal glands, usually produce adrenaline and cortisol. So if we've been really stressed, going stir crazy, anxious about leaving the house ever, or if we're ever going to get our lives back, or feeling depressed about it. Also, the emotions of fear live in the kidneys, right? So that's anxiety, fear of the future, and depression is like this drudgery and of the past, right? So that kidney element is really getting pulled on right now, and parsley is like a kidney tonic. It's also a diuretic, which means it's going to be flushing through the kidney and bladder, right? So from that standpoint, you can really see how that works. So it's really fantastic for the kidneys, for rebuilding that Jing, that life force energy, putting everything back in. Plus it's high in chlorophyll, all of these incredible minerals that are usually in all of your dark leafy greens. Really fantastic. And I'm going to use most of this bunch when I make my sauce. And this is the other thing to do when you're cooking with herbs and things as medicine, is you want to use a lot of it. I'm going to make basically like a pesto out of these things, because it's really going to give me a ton of that healing, which is what I'm going for. And then when you're cooking with these dried herbs and spices as well, using them every day in your cooking, right? What can I add in here? It's going to taste better, but it's also going to be much more medicinal. And then looking at the cilantro, so cilantro is also green and full of chlorophyll and all of these amazing things. But what the magical power of cilantro is, it's a heavy metal puller. So that means any heavy metals in the body, like lead, aluminum, mercury, all of these things that accumulate in our body from our modern world. So, from the medicines that we take, from the air that we breathe, from the tap water, if you don't have a filter on your tap water, and unfortunately it's got to be something stronger than a Brita. Those things don't take out any heavy metals, but it's really everywhere, that we're getting. It's in our paint, it's in the things that we touch. It's all over the place. We live in a very toxic world right now, unfortunately. Hopefully that's something that's going to change after we get out of quarantine, right? We don't want to go back to the way that we were living before. It wasn't sustainable. We want to change that. But our bodies do hold on to heavy metals, and it can be really difficult for the body to get rid of, especially the liver. So the cilantro loves the liver and loves heavy metal. It's going to hold on to it and pull it out of the body. So the parsley is for the kidney element, and the cilantro is for the liver element of the body. And we talk about heavy metal pullers also with seaweed. So this is another place to put a lot of seaweed in. And just with this virus alone, they're seeing a lot of positive influence of having things like spirulina, which is again from the sea, or a seaweed in general, which is pulling heavy metals, because viruses in general attach to heavy metals. Heavy metals don't allow viruses to have their half-life. So a half-life means something as a half-life, it starts to decline, right? And the quicker that half-life happens, the shorter the period of time. The longer that half-life, the longer it can live. Heavy metals allow viruses and things like that to feed off of it and can extend that half-life. So people who are higher in heavy metals in their bodies, right, have a lot of prescription medications, or I'm going to say it, but vaccines in their body, just eat poor quality foods, have a lot of pollution and live in toxic environments, right? Unfortunately, this is a lot of us, and we can't help a lot of that. Some of it, though, we really can, and we need to be just in general aware of it, regardless of our choices, that's the reality. We live with very high toxic heavy metal bodies. So bringing in cilantro, bringing in seaweed, pulling that out, so when viruses do come in, they have their normal average lifespan, and then they do die off, right? We don't want them to become these super things, right, by the things that we inject into our bodies. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is make this chimichurri sauce. So a chimichurri is traditionally made with parsley and cilantro. So I'm just gonna take a big handful of this. All of these things, you guys, you never have to measure out. Even if you're following a recipe for it, don't worry about measuring it out, right? You don't have to do extra dishes and stuff like that too, but you also don't want to be like wasting. If it called for 2 cups and you're like, oh, but I have 3 cups, just throw it all in there, right? I'm not going to do all of it right now just because I don't want to fill this thing up too much, but we can make a whole thing. And then cilantro, right? Putting that in there. Also, what it calls for is garlic. So I'm just gonna do 1 clove of garlic because this is gonna be raw. So anything more than 1 would be a little intense, but again, remember, garlic is medicinal. It's antimicrobial, antiviral, all of these amazing things, and the heat of garlic too. A lot of people, don't really like that heat, that spiciness that garlic has, but that's actually where the medicinal properties lie, is in that heat, because it's bringing heat into the body to help kill off any pathogens. Just like if your body were to get a fever, it's going to heat up, so it's going to kill things off. So garlic is naturally doing that, right? I refer to it as like nature's antibiotic. This, along with oregano, which I'm just realizing is something I forgot to get out of my garden, was fresh oregano, because that is another herb that you put in the chimichurri. And again, I would want to do fresh. I actually wouldn't want to do dried oregano for this because it's dehydrated and it would just clump up and be weird. So in something like a pesto or a pea stew or a chimichurri or any of these fresh sauces, you are using fresh herbs. So again, I just threw this garlic clove in there. And then what also is quintessential in chimichurri is some red wine vinegar. So just about a tablespoon or so of red wine vinegar. And I never have these tops on. I always take them off. They take so long. So anyway, I think I got about, there we go, a tablespoon in there. And then finally, of course, you want to get some really good extra virgin olive oil. I'm getting close to being out. So you want to put that in there. But first, the reason I'm using a food processor and not a blender is because it's mostly dry stuff that I'm working with. The blender is obviously really good with wet things, but I've done it before because I've been a little lazy. I always keep my blender up on my counter and I'll think, okay, it's easier just to grab that and make this chimichurri or this pesto. I'll just do it in there. But what you'll notice is that by the time you put the olive oil in there, it's going around so fast, all of the stuff splatters up onto the wall and it doesn't stay down and it's not actually blending. A food processor does things that are drier better. So you'll see I'll be able to actually really get this dry stuff chopped up more and blend it into like this thicker, chunkier sauce than I would a blender. That has to be more loose and liquidy, right? So just FYI, that's the difference. Okay, so I'm just gonna turn this on. I'm just going to wipe down the sides just a little bit. I have these little spatulas. They're so handy for stuff like this. Okay. Just getting that in there. All right, doing it again. And while it's finished, I'm going to drizzle some olive oil. Okay, cool. I'm gonna do one more little wipe down of the sides. And this is starting to come together as a nice sauce. You can see most of it, if you can see on there, is collecting down there in the bottom. I'm also gonna do a good pinch of salt. Oh, sorry, my oven always does that when I lean up against it. Okay, a little bit of pepper. And before I actually eat this, I can't forget to do the fresh oregano because that really makes chimichurris delish. Okay, I'm turning it on again. Awesome. Okay, so this is so great. And so now I'm getting all of these healing properties in this chimichurri that we talked about. I'm getting that diuretic property from the parsley, right? It's gonna clear through my kidneys. It's really gonna help also restore and rebuild that life force energy of the kidneys if I'm dealing with any anxiety or depression or just feeling exhausted and stressed and whatever. That's what parsley helps with. And then again, the heavy metals is what cilantro helps with. Then I have the antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral garlic in there. I have beautiful olive oil. That was the end of that. I could probably use a little bit more in here, but whatever. You work with what's on hand. So all of that is in there. And what I'm gonna do is tonight we're actually eating steaks. So something like this helps you digest meat, right? You'll see on the side of a plate, you'll always see like a sprig of parsley. They put that on there because it's a digestif. Also, fennel seeds are digestives as well. So if you go to an Indian restaurant, you'll see when you leave just a little bowl of fennel seeds, and you can grab some and chew on them. They're best activated as you chew them. So that's why you throw them in whole to things, and when you eat them, chew them, bite them, they're gonna taste a little anisey, a little licoricey, and they're gonna help you digest. So something like this helps you digest meat. I'm probably going to make a quinoa and put this in the quinoa, so it's gonna be like one of our sides. You can just use the chimichurri straight on top of this steak. That's absolutely delicious. So that was just what I wanted to talk about today in terms of how to use these herbs to heal, different combos. So I hope I did a good enough job. I know it was kind of hard to maybe visualize the combos of these herbs. However, if you sign up for our emails at simply-seasonal.com, you will get an email that has these combos in it. We made this cute little chart, and it has pictures of them in it, so you can see what to do for Italian food, what to do for Asian food, what to do for Indian food, and there was one other box, and I don't remember which one that was, but you'll be able to learn how to do all of those if you sign up for our emails, so you can see them all there. And you can always stay up to date with what's going on. And of course, and the hardest place to reach is the last thing, our cookbook. So we are selling out of these so fast, you guys. Oh my gosh, we were like, whoa, we had no idea. I mean, we're really happy and thankful because we're so proud of it. But we had no idea it was gonna sell out so quickly. So please get your hands on this ASAP, because we're gonna have to print more, and we're not sure how long that's gonna take because we're in springtime right now. You really wanna be taking advantage of all of these different herbs and springtime vegetables and fruits and things that are going on, which you can learn about. Look at all these recipes, and cook yourself all of these incredible recipes that are going to be extremely healing and set you off. We're starting in this springtime of clearing and cleansing, right? And then we're going to get into the summertime, where we're going to do a lot of hydrating, bringing in all of these amazing recipes in the summer. And then we're going to get into fall, which is another flu season, right? And it's an actual respiratory season. So as much as we are getting hit with respiratory in the spring, if we're not careful, this respiratory can be really difficult in the fall when it is a respiratory season. And so all of these foods are in here, so it teaches you how to eat that way, so that by the time you get to the fall, you're super strong and your immune system is ready to go. So that's what this cookbook teaches. Again, head over to simply-seasonal.com, and you'll find it there in the cookbook section, and you can get yours. You can also get an ebook if you'd like as well. So hope that was helpful, and we will see you guys later.